and working as kind of artisan, travelling carpenters, and they may as well come over and do it. So there might be something in France which is comparable with this, but no research has been done on that. And we think we haven't been up into the roof of St Albans Abbey, but I have a feeling that it might have been altered so much that you would have lost lots of this historical art. But we don't know who built it, who set it up, but it's certainly quite unique to this part. I always say to people when they're coming here, with the amount of knowledge that we can gain these days through Wikipedia and researching and kind of on the internet, this is fascinating for me to actually kind of, it could be a lifetime's work for a younger man to actually kind of look at this and be enthusiastic about it. But it is all begun. So much information you can take out all the time. Landowner and who you go and fight for, you didn't really have to say as to whether he was right or wrong, but you would be kind of part of his militia and you would be part of his army. So guys that worked on this barn would have actually had to go into battle and fight for your landlord, if you like. So, important social history, and just to understand the nature of what we have here. And this barn's got such a lot to tell. What we've got over there are some tools that the barn would have been built with. I was just going to have a quick talk about those. But what we're trying to do is have this event every year where it's open to the public. And if you've got any problems, if you've got historic buildings, listed buildings, you want to know about planning applications, you want to know about listed building advice, you want to know about bricks line, then every year at the barn, that information will be ready for you. And that's part of the SPAB work, is that you have to get this message out to the public. So if we just go over there and look at some of these tools, and this was the preferred axe still being used in 1950 by the Canadian loggers who were cutting down all that timber that I mentioned earlier on. The Douglas fir and the pitch pine was being felled with this very axe. And it was put out purely because of the chainsaw. So as soon as diesel and petrol came in, this was no longer used. And exactly the same, that this is an American hickory handled scythe. This is exactly the same as the scythes that they were using in the 1300s when this barn was being built. And that went right the way through until 1948 to 1950, when it was superseded by diesel for tractors. So all the fields would have been cut with this. And what's important about this particular method of cutting is that if you had a building such as this, which was flat thatched and you had long straw, then you have to cut it with one of these, because then you don't damage the straw. So everything was kind of geared up around the way of life. So it's all to do with the rhythm of life and the rhythm of cutting and the rhythm of storing and getting these materials and building your buildings with a kind of empathy. So it's more of a holistic approach to building than we have today. This is a double-handed saw, and when it's being used by two people to use, when it's being used by one person, you take the handle off there and you put it on there, so you can use it in that way. In the same way that when these timbers were cut, they would have had a double-handed saw which was similar to this. This is a relatively small one. The pit saws to cut these could be 12, 14 foot long. You'd have a pit with a man down there, and then the timber and the man standing above it. The guy underneath, these are called dogs here. These are dogs to hold it, same as the fire dogs when you're burning logs. So these are the dogs. The man underneath was the underdog, the man on top was the top dog. The man underneath, the underdog got sawdust in his eyes and didn't see the sunlight. We just hope they changed it around occasionally. But that was still being used up until 1948, cutting pit props. There are photographs of people cutting pit props in Wales with these in 1948. And then just to give you an idea of what we've got here with these timbers, whole timbers up there, all in one piece, that's a very small section of piece of oak. And for construction, and this is a piece of timber that came out of building which dates from 1740 in Croxley Road, which is at the back of Guy's Hospital. And what they did then, they're still using timber to construct with as they are today, no doubt. But this is a piece of timber that still had the bark on it, on that edge there. So you've still got the profile of the tree. And what's interesting about this piece of timber is that it was used as supporting a floor and a fireplace. So the Georgians, when they built their houses, used to put constructional timber such as this straight into the chimney breast to support the floors. And the ends would be exposed to the inside of the flues. Now, when they built the houses in the 1700s, 1600s, 1500s, right the way up until we weren't building with lime anymore, is that you would mix your lime with cow dung. Cow dung is a fire retardant, and you'd line all the chimneys as you build them with this material. So that meant that this building was absolutely fine until such time that the fireplaces weren't used on a regular basis. And what happens is that the fireplaces get capped off, the lime gets too wet, it sort of draws up the moisture inside the flue because it's not ventilating, and then it detaches itself and drops off. And when it drops off, it exposes all the timbers that are in the flue, in the chimney stack itself. So when you have a fire, your fire is then burning the ends of all the joists, and that's exactly what happened here. So this house caught fire just through the way it was constructed. When it was constructed, it was perfectly all right because it was lined, but it's that lining that's dropped off, and that's something that lots of people just don't take into account when they're working with historic buildings. So you just need to know what you're dealing with, and that's why weekends like today are so important. So I hope that's given you a good understanding of the passion that we have for this barn and the passion for historic building repairs. By all means, please stay and have a look at the blacksmiths outside. And I think they'll be doing a hot lime mix as well quite soon and doing some brickwork. And I hope you'll come back and see us on other occasions. We're open the last Saturday in the month from April until October in association with Three Rivers Museum. But this weekend with the SPAB, we've just been doing once a year, and the next one will be this time next year. Last bank holiday weekend in May. So thank you very much for coming. Thank you.
Yeah.